In other news now, and of course, intense fighting continues as Israel has expanded its ground offensive in Gaza. Israeli strikes have now targeted refugee camps. This latest move threatens to derail the ongoing hostage release talks. This as the war is now expanding well beyond Israel's borders. In the latest, the Rafah border has been opened for the first time since the war began for evacuation purposes. First, foreign officials are being allowed to evacuate from Gaza for Egypt today. And as per reports, Qatar has mediated an agreement between Egypt, Israel and Hamas in coordination with the US to allow for the movement of foreign passport holders and some critically injured people out of the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, Israel has confirmed that 9 of its soldiers were killed during combat operations in Gaza on Tuesday. This brings the total number of Israeli troops killed since October 7th to 326. Both Hamas and Israel have engaged in tough battles in the last 24 hours. Israel says it has troops that have hit anti-tank missiles, launching cells and observation posts, seizing many guns and explosives and killing dozens of militants on Tuesday, while it has hit 11,000 Gaza terror targets since the war began. Israel attacked a densely populated refugee camp in northern Gaza. It's called the Jabalia refugee camp. Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says that at least 50 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli strikes on this camp. Israel Army says it has secured a central Hamas stronghold in the refugee camp airstrike. The IDF has announced that its fighter jets eliminated the commander of the Hamas Central Jabalia battalion, who they say was one of the leaders responsible for the deadly terror attacks on October 7th. Now, moving on to the hostage situation, the military wing of the Hamas says that the group plans to release some non-Israeli hostages that have been holding in the coming days. In a video statement, the group announced that the release had been arranged through mediation by some nations, though these nations were not named. Hamas also did not reveal how many hostages would be freed, but said that the group no longer had the desire or need to keep them. Meanwhile, the Qatari Prime Minister has also told visiting Thailand Foreign Minister that efforts are on to secure the release of hostages. However, the Israeli strikes on Gaza's refugee camp, Qatar has warned that Israeli aggression can undermine the discussions over the hostage crisis. On the other hand, the war is expanding beyond the borders. Tensions have risen on the Israeli border with Lebanon since the war began, as the fighting continues with Hezbollah. On Tuesday, Lebanon accused Israel of white phosphorus attacks, over which it said it would file a complaint to the United Nations. Elsewhere, Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels said they attacked Israel on Tuesday. They quote-unquote launched a large batch of ballistic missiles and a large number of armed aircraft were launched at Israel. The Houthi rebels pledged more attacks against Israel if its war on Hamas in Gaza continues. Now, shifting focus to the aid situation in Gaza, the White House said 66 trucks of humanitarian assistance entered Gaza in the last 24 hours, and that dozens more are expected to be cleared for deliveries. The U.S. acknowledged that the level of truck aid deliveries so far is just a fraction of how much is needed. U.S. officials say they would like to reach up to 100 trucks a day. Meanwhile, the U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with Jordan's King Abdullah, and both nations agreed that it is critical to ensure that Palestinians are not forcibly displaced. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also spoke with Israeli President via phone and reiterated U.S. support to Israel. In other updates, Israel has slammed Bolivia's decision to cut ties over the war in Gaza. Israel has called Bolivia's decision a surrender to terrorism. Bolivia announced that it is cutting diplomatic ties with Israel while accusing Israel of committing war crimes. Our correspondent Jody Cohen sent us this report on the situation from the Rafah crossing.
In a deal agreed between Qatar, Israel, Egypt and Hamas in coordination with the United States, some 400 foreign passport holders and 90 critically injured civilians are being allowed to leave Gaza through the Rafah crossing into Egypt, where a field hospital is being set up. Israel has also said that several countries are responding to Israel's request for them to send ships to serve as hospitals off the safe zone in southern Gaza. That's because they say Hamas has set up command centres under Gazan hospitals. Now, this deal is not connected to the hostages. Remember, Hamas is still holding 240 people in Gaza, including 30 children and babies. Hamas has indicated it would soon release hostages with foreign passports. Israel has called for the release of all hostages and called the announcement psychological warfare. This is Jodie Cohen for WION World as One.